Well, I didn't find the button, but I found it from the pull-down menu. Holy shit. Okay, give me a second. I swear to God, I am sweating. I've never
Okay.
felt so dumb in my life. And I am a dumb person, so that's saying something.
No, you're not dumb. How could you be dumb with all the skills you have? Look at all that behind you.
Luckily, I have the ability to morph. Well, thank you for doing this. This is so awesome. I
My pleasure. Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks for asking me.
I'm gonna give you an intro. I probably won't even use it. I'll probably introduce you in front of the green screen, but I'm gonna do it for psychological reasons to get me in the zone.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We are sitting here with Melissa Hill for All Celebrity Request March, and your celebrity request was or is Penetrator 2, Grudge Day.
Yes.
It's so good. Oh man, I'd only seen bits and pieces of it. So when you chose this was the first time that I had seen it from front to back.
Okay.
I had seen it in uh I had seen clips online, but I'd also seen it in documentaries about the adult film world. I'd
Oh,
seen
really?
it in adult documentaries about parodies.
Okay.
Because well, first of all, it's made so well, and you won Best Actor of the Year for this.
I did. Looking at it now, though, I'm like, really?
Oh,
I
I
mean,
think,
I watch it now, 30 years later, and I think, oh, I could have done that so much better now.
well, that's just par for the course. Everyone does that. But you did such a good job, and so did everyone.
Yeah. I think
Like,
Caitlin
um,
did a really great job.
the direction, the writing, the camera, the editing, your whole cast, not just you, everyone. It's a very impressive movie.
It took a long time to make. The director Nick Kramer had actually written it, years before. The part was supposed to originally be played by Ashlyn Gear, but by the time he finally found a studio that was willing to make it and provide somewhat of a budget, she had retired. So in stepped me.
Very cool.
I don't think I did it. I mean, Ashlyn would have done, I think, a much better job. I think it was weird watching it now. I watched the 20 minutes that you had made in the PG version. And I think, wow, I was really too young I mean, I was 27, but, I feel like I was too young to bring to it the maturity that should have been brought to that part. And at the time, the industry also kind of like laughed over the fact that, oh, I was playing the mom and Caitlin was playing the daughter, but it finally got made, and a lot of it was we spent 5 days shooting on film, which at that time was not that many people were shooting on film anymore, but or and they don't now at all. um anyway, and so yeah, so by the time it was finally greenlit, the original budget had been cut in half, so some of the stuff had to be cheated a little bit. But yeah, I remember at the time though, it was a really great experience. And we basically lived at the studio for 5 days. We had an international cast. Alberto Ray was from Belgium, and we had people from Sweden working in front of the camera, behind the camera. So yeah, it was really great. It was
My family's from Sweden.
oh, really?
So
Okay.
I'm first generation America, but or no, I guess technically my mom is. But yeah, my grandma grew up in Sweden.
Oh, have you ever been there?
Nope.
Oh my gosh, it's such a beautiful place. I
My
went there twice.
um I knew that Nick Kramer was from Sweden. This is the first Nick Kramer film we've ever done, which is crazy because I'm editing prior to you and I and
Hmm.
All Celebrity Request March. I'm editing two Nick Kramer movies.
Oh,
So
really?
so a bunch will start coming out.
Oh,
And
that's so cool. I bet Clockwork Orgy would be a good one.
that's one of them.
Also starring Caitlin Ashley.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, and it's funny when I was watching the edit that you'd sent me the other day, I was laughing my ass off because I completely forgot that he had the cameo in the back seat of the patrol car. That that's him.
You have already, without even knowing it, covered two of my questions. And I only have five.
Oh, oops, sorry.
No, that's perfect. That keeps me on track.
Okay.
Um, one of my questions was, and I spent some time trying to figure this out, and I don't know if I can update IAFD. I can update IMDb, and I do it often. But IAFD actually has like a zoomed in crappy picture of like the man in the back seat, and it says like unknown male.
Oh my gosh, you're kidding.
So my hunt, which I spent a little bit of time, because I get fixated on the dumbest things. I'm like, who is that guy in the back? Because he never comes back, but he's in a shot. He's in it for a while. You're like, who's that guy? And then Jonathan Morgan flips the car, and we never see that guy in the back again.
Right.
But that is perfect. That is such like a Alfred Hitchcock cameo.
That was the reason. Yeah, Nick was actually, a real filmmaker. He was an actor in Sweden, and he did some acting here in the United States. I think he was in People Under the Stairs.
Oh,
So he was
really?
he was a putz. um, I met him when we went to the Philippines to film the other movie that I had sent in. This is my second choice, which was the Apocalypse movie.
Uh-huh.
And we spent a month filming that one. So
Oh,
in the
wow.
Philippines, but we had a lot of situations going on. This whole other story. Filming in the Philippines, people thought, oh, it's going to be so exotic, and it was like, first off, it wasn't legal, and they got people following you everywhere without
Oh,
you knowing it, and yeah, and we learned that the hard way. But anyway, we're not talking about that movie. We're talking about Penetrator 2.
yeah. Well, well, let me say this. One of the biggest topics of the 80s, so previous decade,
Okay.
is the takeover of video from film.
Okay.
And so here we are in the 90s, and we're shooting on film. Not only this, but you also, 2 years after this, won Best Supporting Actor for Bad Wives. And both of those are mid 90s, and they're both shot on film. So you were lucking out. Uh you got to work on film a lot. And maybe I shouldn't say lucked out because that could be seen as negative. But you did get to shoot on two huge award-winning, amazing film projects long after most people had given up.
Yeah, I feel like I had a pretty blessed experience. I mean, I didn't come out of the industry, rich or anything like that. But I was really selective in the projects that I chose, especially after my initial introduction into the industry. I did the amateur stuff and the pro-am stuff. And once that kind of came out, I realized, you know what, I don't want to I want to do the stuff that like I came here to do. Once I found out, because, well, my dad's porn collection obviously was on film. And so that was what I knew the industry to be, movies that look like regular movies,
Mhm.
but the actors just had intercourse. So that was how I always approached the projects. I tried to approach it from an actor's perspective, which, like I said, now looking at him, I'm going, I don't think I did a really good job about that. But anyway, so yeah, so I guess when word got out that that's what my goal was, is that I wanted to do projects that required me to speak. Um, so I did get cast in a lot of films after that, especially working for Paul Thomas with Vivid. I think he only shot on film, if I remember correctly. I don't remember, but yeah. So I think I had a really good experience, and I didn't really, I don't really see myself as a giant, I'm not a Jenna Jameson or Ashlyn Gear or anything like that, anyone like that. Um, but again, I'm very proud of the experiences that I had, and the opportunities I was given, and the ones that I turned down.
Hey, Paul Thomas earned that film camera because when he transitioned to directing in the mid 80s, his first whole run was all video, and then I guess he must have proved himself because late 80s, all early 90s, he did all those Debbie Does Dallas reimaginings, Next
Uh-huh.
Generation 99. Those are all shot on film.
Oh, wow.
So he must have like proved himself somehow because that's impressive to be like, hey, I just made like 8 pictures with a video camera and now I'm gonna
Mhm.
convince people to like quadruple my budget.
Right. Well, that's kind of what Nick did. He did, what do you call it? One back then was called the One Day Wonders.
Mhm.
5 videos, 5 movies in one week, all with the same cast. And so he acquired a lot of friends in the industry from that. And so he had a lot of loyal people that worked for him, and saw his artistic vision. So he was able to, get some really good people involved with his projects, and yeah, and but when I look back at the projects I worked on, especially the PT ones, I didn't realize it at the time. 1988 was when the industry was deemed legal, after the whole Tracy Lord stuff. And I started in 1993, 1994. So I feel like I was, just on the backseat of that. And I was in a really good era, I think, of filmmaking, for the adult industry at that time. I mean, after the golden era. So I guess we were the silver era.
Mhm. You know what's funny? And this is how my silly brain works. I just took off right before we started, took off my Tracy Lords t-shirt because I didn't know if it would offend you or not. It split, let me just say, it splits the room. Some
Yeah.
people are like, "Oh, she's rad," and some people are like, "I hate her and she's offensive." And so what I did is my replacement is a Two Live Crew t-shirt.
Yeah, I saw that. So yeah, that's not offensive at
Yeah,
all.
that's not offensive. Um, okay, let me ask you this. Same question. What was it like? Because you were shooting on film and video at the same time. What was it like going back and forth between projects? Okay, for example, this is your third time on the show, and Taboo 14, Kissing Cousins. You got to be the orderly to my favorite male actor, John Doe.
Hmm.
And that thing, same year as Penetrator, clearly shot on a video camera. So, what was it like throughout your career bouncing back and forth? Because the way I asked it at first, it might appear like there's a line drawn in the sand, like here's video, here's
Yeah.
film. But no, you were bouncing back and forth between the two. So, what was it like doing that?
I didn't realize that the Taboo one and Penetrator came out the same year, because that movie that I did with John Doe for the Taboo, I believe was the first time I worked with him, if I remember correctly. And and later he became one of my regular partners, my regular
Mhm.
scene partners. Um, it's weird when I think back to those days. Yeah, it was. There were a couple of projects I remember after my run on films that I did go back and work on projects that were video, and I did feel a little, it felt a little weird it felt a little weird. The video shoots could kind of go quicker because the film reels that they had were only 20-minute film reels, and so they, were really had to be really certain with what they were recording. So when it came to the non-dialogue stuff, I was like, I promise you, we'll get this done. You won't waste any film. So, but yeah, the difference was like what colors you could wear on screen. Back then you weren't supposed to wear red, black, or white. Black was muddy, red would run, and white, I forget what the reason was, but you could on film.
Hmm.
So yeah, so in my recollection, most of the video projects I did were at the beginning of my career. I really don't remember them. I feel like once I jumped over to Vivid, people thought I was a contract girl. So I didn't get hired for other companies very much. And, the companies that still shot on video or
Hmm.
that no longer shot on film. So I don't know. That's an interesting question. I don't want to be snobby about it, but when the awards do get mentioned, just the other day, someone was like, what awards they had me down, just, for actress and supporting actress. And I was like, on film. Like, because back then they had two separate categories for the awards,
Hmm.
video and film. Now it's just one category
Yeah.
again. So I don't know if that answered your question though.
Sure. Yeah, no, it does. It does.
Okay.
Because I've had the same thing. It was kind of a bummer. I shot my first feature-length film on 16 millimeter. Our magazines were 11 minutes, so you had double that. 11 minutes was the most we could shoot. But then when I made my second feature, a lot of the same people were in it, and they show up to the set, and we're just shooting it with like one of those, like just a home video camera, and it
Uh-huh.
does, like you touched on, it does have a different feel. And as the director, I can tell when people show up and they're like, "Oh, we're shooting this on video." I'm like, yeah, sorry. But I'm also talking about the late 90s, early millennium. Nowadays, everything's video.
Right.
But
Or they've used their phone and attach it into like an
yeah,
adapter so it feels like a camera
uh-huh.
or feels like a film camera, I should say. Or yeah. So I forgot what I was gonna say. Sorry. Age.
How about I tried to figure this out as an editor. I went frame by frame to see if it was like a a trick photography, but it certainly appeared not to be. It certainly appeared that you were firing a shotgun. You can see the sparks and flames. I'm going frame by frame. And I can see you kick back. I'm like, dude, I think she's firing guns.
Oh yeah, yeah, we did. We had an ammunition guy who he also was the owner of the police car. So he was also our stunt coordinator. But I practiced the walk and with because I had to do it with one hand. So I spent
Hmm.
that whole week practicing the walk, step, 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 and um and then that scene where we used it was actually the final scene shot because we filmed that scene at night, which a lot of it didn't make it into your PG version, but we filmed that at night, and we were racing the sun. So, and it was in this big warehouse, so we couldn't
Hmm.
cover the windows or anything. So I think we finished just before the sun came up. It was a long night that night. And yeah, so yes, it was real. I mean, they, you know, it was a real shotgun with real blanks.
Um, well, our audience, I mean, I say this so many times, but our audience is adults. And so if you are an adult, go check out the original, especially the ending. I when I finished the screener, I like talked to you a little bit in the beginning, like, "Hi, Melissa." Before I sent it, I was like, "Man, should I try to do something different with this ending?" Because the ending is so abrupt, and in the movie, the ending is long and epic, and um, it's non-sexual, but you are firing a shotgun completely in your birthday suit. It's like the most hardcore. It is definitely hardcore. I guess I should maybe not say that word in the adult film industry. I mean, it's hardcore like punk rock. It's hardcore. You're butt naked shooting a shotgun.
Yeah, that was yeah, I do remember that. That was I didn't like it. What I didn't, of course, now looking back, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what was I so afraid of?" But at the time, I was like, I felt weird doing it because my belly would jiggle. And here's a fun fact. That same shotgun and same police car were the ones used in Bad Wives.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So I kind of got to know that stunt coordinator because there was he was used on a couple of different movies. Even another Nick Kramer movie that I filmed as well, which actually might have been on video. I don't remember. Anyway, when you get
Yeah.
him here, you can ask
Yeah.
him all those questions.
Okay. Apocalypse Climax was like a year or two after this, right? I don't have that in my notes. I only have Penetrator 2,
um,
but it's a lot of the same people.
yes, that's how. Well, Apocalypse Climax was filmed before Penetrator 2. That's how Nick got to know those people, and then
Oh.
so like Alberto. Um,
Or
we
maybe
went to,
yeah, I didn't write down any
oh,
numbers, so I'm pulling from
okay.
my mind. So that might be completely wrong.
I
Uh,
okay, here's what happened. Okay, so when we were in the Philippines filming Apocalypse Climax, we had to leave the country before everything was filmed because what we were doing wasn't legal. And as I kind of mentioned earlier, we were being followed by the secret police. So once we realized we were being followed, we could no longer film any hardcore. So we did all the like battle scenes, the
mhm.
monologue, all that. And um, so there's a scene when my character is doing the monologue with John Doe, Colonel Flirts and John Doe, and we stand up, and that's where they cut filming. And then we had to go to Sweden months later, and the crew in Sweden had rebuilt the the little
The hut.
shack, the little
Yeah.
shack that we were in, because the shack we used was a real shack that was sitting next to a river in the Philippines. So the crew for private rebuilt it just from using the Polaroids and video and stuff. They rebuilt the shack inside a studio. So, and I had actually lost some weight in between the two. I had a suntan and everything. So they had to film it in a way so that you couldn't really notice all that stuff. So
Mhm.
when we went back to Sweden to film all the hardcore stuff that hadn't been filmed in the Philippines, like I think John Doe did a scene inside a submarine.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I remember. So that's where uh, Nick met Alberto Ray. And then he was like, oh my gosh, you'd be perfect for a penetrator. And then, so it is possible that Apocalypse Climax came out after Penetrator, but it was actually filmed before it, most of it.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
One thing I did notice, Jonathan Morgan, I think he does excellent. I love him.
Yeah.
But
He did a great job.
along right around this time, he was becoming quite the filmmaker himself, not just an actor. And when I was looking at the credits, Jake Jacobs shot this, and he cut it with Jonathan Morgan was the editor of this movie.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Jake and Jonathan were partners in Scuzzy Post.
Okay.
So Yeah, Jonathan had his, no pun intended. Jonathan had his fingers in a little bit of everything in the industry. Now he's an agent. So
Oh, cool.
yeah. But I remember when he was hired to, I mean, Jonathan really petitioned himself to play that part. He wanted it so bad, and so he did like a really disciplined workout regimen so he could have that body.
Uh-huh.
and and I remember when the movie was released, everyone was blown away. So, when we were young, we were all so young.
I just talked about him, and this is a perfect example. I can't remember what movie it was. I don't, but it doesn't matter. Um, he is such a ham. He is such a goofball. But why I was brought him up is because when he is called upon to not be a goofball, he
Mhm.
is so good in the drama. And in that speech that I'm referencing, that I can't even think of what movie it is, I referenced that he reminds me of the modern Mike Horner. Because Mike Horner was also the biggest. He was like the freaking Jim Carrey. He was the goofiest, but every once in a while he had to do some dramatic roles. And
Yeah.
so Jonathan Morgan kind of reminds me of Mike Horner, which I think that's impressive when someone can be like 90% class clown,
Yeah.
but then when you're called upon, you can bring the dramatic role.
Yeah. It's my corner. So you asked earlier about what was it like going back and forth
Hmm.
between video and film. Now, kind of what was interesting for me at that time was there was three films that were kind of being filmed around the same time. There's Penetrator 2, Bad Wives was there around that same time, and a film that it was Mike Horner's dream project, a personal project. He used his own money. It was called Dreams of Desire. Now, unfortunately, it's been sold to another company and they changed the name. I don't even know what the name is, but yeah, so it was really, so that was an interesting time for me, working for Mike Horner, working for Nick Kramer, and working for Paul Thomas, all three great filmmakers that I felt really honored to work with. Maybe if you ever get Mike Horner on here, you could find out the name of the movie that it became, or that could be, you can go down a rabbit hole and try to find it yourself. It's called Dreams of Desire,
Okay.
and it was a great film. I don't think you'd be able to edit it down to a PG version though. If you did, it'd be 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But
This show used to be called G-rated porn. We
okay,
got in a bunch of trouble because YouTube hates the P word.
okay.
Um, I actually got like a suspension. I got a couple strikes because
Oh my
the
gosh.
playlists were called G-rated porn. And so after all that trouble, our show became Squeaky Clean Adult Films. But a little bit before the name change, we included the PG category
Hmm.
because like I could only do like 1 out of 10 requests because to make Triple X rated G is like so impossible. No innuendo, no cigarettes, no alcohol, no swears, no, So
It's fun.
I'm glad we now have the PG category because I don't think we'd have been able to do Penetrator 2, the G-rated version. It
You
would
know,
have
it's
literally been like what you said. It might have been under 5 minutes.
when I was watching the screener you sent me the other day, I totally forgot that they had me smoking in this movie because I don't smoke in
Oh
real
yeah.
life. So I smoked, my character smoked in Bad Wives and my character smoked in this movie. And that's the other thing. It's like, I think they did a really good job in editing Penetrator 2 to make it look like it wasn't unnatural for me.
Hmm.
In Bad Wives, PT was so frustrated with me. We kept shooting it over and over again because, and that was another thing. Like, it's like how I had to practice walking around with a shotgun. I kept walking around trying to practice holding a cigarette, which now, like, I feel like I could totally pull off if, I can't do the little, little flicks or anything like that. But
Uh-huh.
at least I think, I'd be able to hold it and I don't know, do a better job now.
So we have less than a minute.
Okay.
I'm so sorry that I wasted 9 minutes of your time. But thank you for doing this. Thank you so much.
I had so much fun and thank you for including me in